Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jake Valancourt. I am the CMO at 10X Engineered Materials, and I'm joined here by Steve Ritchie, our CEO.
Well, hi, everybody. Thanks for attending today. As Jake said, I'm Steve Ritchie. I'm the CEO and co-founder of 10X, along with Jake and a few others. At first, I just want to tell you, in the very beginning, this is years before 10X was formed as a company. We were just a group of engineers looking for something productive to do with a sandy byproduct from mineral wool manufacturing. Mineral wool is used to make insulation and soundproofing and fireproofing materials, but they were throwing this sandy byproduct away. And one of our ideas was just to try it as a blasting abrasive. And when we tested it and compared it to other abrasives, what jumped out immediately was the speed of the blast and the bright finish. And we were like, okay, this is different. We had no idea why, but it happened every time. And when we first showed it to some finishers and distributors, and this was before we built a factory to make it, they saw the same thing. One major distributor called it revolutionary. They said they've been looking for a mineral wool abrasive or a mineral abrasive that would do this, but they couldn't find it. And now here we are 7 years later, and we understand why. We know why the particles do what they do. And there's a lot of science behind it. And for those curious-minded people out there, it's an elastic ceramic formed by rapidly solidifying molten liquid right in the middle of a Rayleigh-Taylor instability. But that's not what that's why it's called superoxalloy, but that's not what this webinar is about. This webinar is meant to share with all of you how, in the real world, these unique material properties can help you lower your own costs and deliver differentiated value to your customers at the same time. And speaking of the real world, we have Jacob Magner of Encrypted Coatings here with us today. And Jacob has embraced the technology and is growing and profiting from it. And he'll share his experience in the webinar. But Jacob, can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Yep. My name's Jacob Magner. I do a few different things. People watching this may have seen me on different videos and stuff. So I run Encrypted Coatings here in Michigan, and it's a growing powder coating industry. And then I also run the powder coating group on Facebook, where we help people learn how to powder coat. And then I also own powdercoatingtools.com.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yep.
So we're all in competitive businesses. We all have challenges that weigh down our profitability. And Jake Valancourt, you've probably seen more powder and Cerakote than any of us. And you wanted to ask the audience a question, so take it away.
Yeah, I wanted to start with a question. If folks either look at the screen or on the right, you should be able to click your answer. But essentially, we want to ask you what you think your biggest profit drain is out of these four options. And Jacob, I think this would be great for you to talk about a little bit now, and then we can hand it back to Steve. But essentially, and what we're seeing is no one is actually saying high media and coating use. Everyone is saying that they have to cut prices to win jobs or rework.
And the race to the bottom.
Long lasting time. Yeah, everyone should be able to see the answers. But why don't you talk a little bit about your experience here, and then we'll hand it back to Steve. And we'll obviously, towards the end, we have some information from your business that I think people will be excited to hear as well.
Sure. I call the 43%-ish. It's changing still, but having to cut prices to win jobs, it's also known as the race to the bottom. When I first started, I'm not gonna lie, I definitely did do this. I, analyzed what market value was around me. And of course, there's lots of big industrial shops that are, able to put things through at a very low price, but they just don't give you the quality. I mean, I know there's tons of people that are coating right now or have heard that story. Oh, well, this place did it for as an example, wheels, $40 a wheel, but they only offer one color and it didn't turn out great. These guys are running them through lines and such. And then, I was trying to compete with that. I was trying to lower and lower and lower my price. And then what ended up happening is I just got a lot of customers that expected that cheap price. And, when you actually sit down and analyze your profitability, it didn't make sense. Not only because, a lot of guys doing this aren't getting into it to just make minimum wage. There's a lot of work that goes into running a business. So, um, you know, long story short, to build your customer base, you want to build it off of the people that say, "Oh, if you want something done right and have quality that lasts, go to this guy. Maybe a little bit more money, but totally worth it." So that's in answering the looks like we have the majority saying having to cut prices to win jobs. So,
Yeah, yeah. Most people said either long blast times or having to cut prices. So
you know,
we'll definitely cover some of all of that.
yep.
And I'll hand this back to Steve for a little bit.
Okay, so what we're going to cover today, and shouldn't take too long. What we're not going to talk about is fluid dynamics and material science, I promise. But
Okay.
but we first have to explain what the particles do and why they're different. Because knowing these things is important for you to be able to think through how you can take advantage of them in your particular business. We all know surface finishing is not easy. It can be difficult to achieve exactly what you need on the first pass without rejects or unplanned work. And we'll cover how 10x abrasives can plug these profit leaks. And next is how you can leverage these properties to differentiate your business from your competition. I mean, our goal as a business is to help you elevate the position of your business and command a premium that, as Jacob just said, your customers will be happy to pay for. The most valuable part of this will be in what Jacob has to say specifically about how he's doing all of this. You may not do exactly what he's doing, but the goal is for you to get new ideas about what you can do to solve your problems and improve your business. And we'll leave time at the end to answer your questions. So why is 10x superoxalloy abrasive unique? Well, it all happens in the mineral wool process, in the way that they formulate the material, what's in it, and in the way they process it. And first and foremost, mineral wool dust is soluble in human lungs. And it's been declared Group 3 by the International Agency for Research on Cancer. That is a mic drop. It's officially in the same category as coffee and tea, and you can rest assured that it won't hurt you or make you sick. And Jake, you have a nice story about one of our customers who this really impacted him. Can you tell the story about Ben?
Yeah. So Ben is with AeroMarine in Western Canada, and he's one customer who's very, he's a geek about this like we are. He's very into the tech behind it, and all about hacking or optimizing his process. And once he eventually tried, he used to use slag abrasives and was familiar with steel and all kinds of other abrasives. But once he tried our product, pretty early on, they decided to switch. And within the first month or two, I just happened to be out that way and spent an afternoon at their shipyard. And one of the things he told me was he has eczema, and basically where he'd get these rashes all the time. And he had been working around different abrasives for years, and he'd have these almost hive-like breakouts all the time. And about 3 or 4 weeks after switching, and the only abrasive he was exposed to, like during cleanup, obviously when they're under a hood, they're not exposed. But once that everything was gone and it was just 10x, he noticed. He even sent me like photos of his arm. He noticed that there were no more rashes. He couldn't believe it, and a persistent cough he always had was gone. And these are anecdotal things, but it kind of goes along with what the studies have shown. So they absolutely love the product. They've more than doubled their production. They're much more profitable now, and they've grown their business. And they're not just able to get a lot more throughput. They get twice as many boats done in a year, but they're more profitable. So they've been able to hire more people to do other work that has nothing to do with blasting and coating, but provide other services and expand their business. And it's fantastic. The name of the business is Aero Marine. And there's a couple testimonials and things on our YouTube channel that talk more in depth about that. But yeah, it changes people's lives sometimes, and that can be a big deal.
Yes, and I was where the line of thought I was on before we talked about safety was how the mineral wool process does so much to make the particles what they are. One of them is that they're formed in a highly controlled process. So they're consistent from batch to batch. You'll get repeatable results with each grade of 10X every time. And the upshot of all the material science is that the abrasive is made of non-crystalline, non-porous, elastic ceramic particles that have high impact strength. They rebound from the surface in large part. Some of them break, but very few, without breaking or shattering. And this stiff elasticity and resistance to fracture does a whole bunch of things. The particles deliver more energy to the surface per particle, and that results in faster blasting using less material. Far fewer of the particles shatter into dust or embed in the surface profile, and that's why the finish is so bright and clean and the dust is so low. Our customers love the customers love the low dust, mainly because they can see what they're doing. And since the vast majority of particles rebound from the surface without breaking down, the abrasive can be reused several times, up to 12 times, according to our customers. And that bright, clean, beautiful finish that we've been seeing for 7 years is real. The finished surface actually slows natural corrosion processes, both on carbon steel and on some non-ferrous metals. We know it delays rust bloom repeatedly on carbon steel. And we have learned more recently that it inhibits the color change on stainless steel when it's heated. And this improves the overall thermal performance of coatings when the surface is prepared with 10X. So if you're producing parts for high temperature service, you can know 10X has been tested and have been shown through testing by coatings manufacturers to perform extremely well under thermal cycling. And finally, if you look closely at the abrasive, you can see our patent image on the right. You'll see a crazy set of particle shapes. They're from rounded to angular and everything in between, and there's nothing else like it. But what this does, it creates a profile that is uniquely active and provides exceptional adhesion. So not only does it help with thermal performance, but the coatings will resist impact, abrasion, and last longer in rough environments. As I said, a recent coating manufacturer recently tested all of this. So these are the unique attributes that many of our customers like Jacob are leveraging to lower their own costs and elevate their position relative to their competitors. So this is a summary of basically what I just said on the last slide. We wanted to have this on here for the people who watch the presentation after this live webinar. So plugging the profit leaks. Profit leaks are everywhere in surface preparation. They're everywhere in just about every business. But the way it works and the way it ends up happening is there's a lot of seemingly small things that add up and weigh down profitability. And one nearly invisible leak in surface prep is excess abrasive consumption. I mean, with any abrasive, you obviously want to use the least amount of abrasive required for the job. And accomplishing this involves testing different equipment and operational settings like pressure, nozzle size, abrasive metering, abrasive reclaim settings, among other things. But you'll find with 10X is at the end of this, you'll be using less media than other abrasives, sometimes dramatically less. You'll use less abrasive per pass, and then you'll be able to reuse it many times. The next issue is coating usage and cost. This is often the result of an improper, over-profiled surface, an inconsistently profiled surface, and that has to be covered up by applying more coating. And it has far-reaching effects for overall cost and throughput because it leads to defects in rework, longer cure times and energy costs, and unnecessary increases in overall cycle time. We have several customers that were using steel grit or steel abrasives, which are tremendously recyclable. They're the most reusable abrasives on earth. But what they found was that the decreases in curing costs, the decreases in curing time, these effects were far more valuable than the extra uses they got out of the steel abrasive, because the surface profile was right on the first pass every time. And then rework. It's probably the most visible and costly profit leak. And this is where the properties of mineral wool particles shine the brightest. It's that first pass quality and consistently will go way up, and you will have way less of this unplanned work and cost. And then finally, there's the premature field failures. They're critically important, but you only know about some of them. Many of them just create disappointed customers who don't come back, and you may never know why. So some of the defects that you guys are all aware of and have seen before, but they are just so important, and you'll see a lot less of these if you use 10X abrasives. Surface prep is involved in many of these defects. Fish eyes, edge peeling, uneven films, and the nasty of them all we just discussed: rejects, rework, and delays. So with a high first pass success rate, and it's all because of the properties that the 10X particles inherit from the mineral wool process.
And then talking about just to go over those two pictures real quick. So that first slide to me looks like embedment, which out of all of the years I've been using 10X now, I've never once had an embedment issue. And then the slide to the right there, the orange peel, that can be from uneven film buildup. But also what I've noticed is some of the harsher medias, maybe like coal slag, can actually leave that same looking defect and cause maybe not like a performance issue, but definitely an aesthetic issue that your customer will not be happy with. Another thing I've not experienced yet with 10X. So I just wanted to touch base on the actual images there.
Yep, I appreciate it. And finally, everyone who's in business knows that improving profitability is not easy. It's a lot easier said than done, and it involves more than just cutting costs. We have to differentiate ourselves, and we have to find ways to provide extra value and give customers reasons to choose us and stay with us, and even pay a premium for the quality that they get. When your customer says that XYZ company across town can do this for X dollars less, you need to be able to say, nope, they can't do this. Let me show you something. And this means you have to document your value. You have to be ready to communicate it to your customers and to the market on a regular basis. That will change your position in the market. And this will help you get new customers. It'll sustain your repeat business. But probably as importantly as anything, it'll help you attract higher value customers and opportunities. And all of this can turn into an upward virtuous spiral. And 10X can be your secret weapon in all of this. It has been for Jacob, and he's here to tell you what embracing this technology has done for his business. So, Jacob, we'd love it if you could just take it away and share how you're doing this as a sort of as a reference for others, so that they can develop their own ideas on how they can do it in their business.
Sure. Here's a good example. This wheel right here on the left is actually going to be a multi-tone wheel, and so the flat part of that is going to be one color, and then the inlay is going to be another color. What I've noticed with 10X, this is kind of an efficiency thing here, is using 10X, it leaves the right amount of profile. So when I actually go and do this two-tone, you're actually able to remove the powder and make cleaner lines, as well as more efficiently remove it, not leaving anything behind. And then adhesion as well. I've noticed extreme improvements in adhesion. We have a lot of industrial customers. And again, I could talk for hours about this, but adhesion, depending on which way you're going with your business, if your customers are more industrial and do like ASTMD 533 or 544, I can't remember the exact number. But if they do the mandrel test, we've noticed and seen across that there has been a significant improvement over what we used in the past. And over the years, that has allowed me to absorb a lot more customers that are industrial. So there's two sides. There's like the commercial and the industrial side. Commercial side, longevity. We've noticed that the actual part itself, when we use 10X, it just lasts longer. The coating itself lasts longer on the part due to the adhesion, especially on wheels when they're in constant motion, getting rock chips, stuff like that. And we get a lot of return customers now, to the point where we have customers that don't even ask price anymore. They just are like, hey, yeah, you did my McLaren wheels, and to this day they're still perfect, all the way to the tractor guys that are like, hey, you did my tractor wheels. It's been 4 years and they still look new. And I know a lot of guys watching this know that substrates are that's the baseline to your finish. Of course, powder performance is critical too, but having that good substrate to be able to allow the best opportunity for that coating to last is critical. A lot of guys don't know this, but some places, industrial wise, if you're going down that path, they'll do not just mandrel testing, but I've learned this recently, and I worked in a salt spray lab, but they do salt spray testing too, to check the adhesion levels. And I can't say much on this one, but one of my customers has shown that this actually improved that testing. I can't say who it is, but there's a lot of little cogs in this thing that have allowed my company to grow and grow and grow to a tier 2 supplier, as well as doing a lot of cool things. Like we finished a car that Rick Ross just bought. I mean, just having hand in that it's pretty amazing. It's pretty cool. And I attribute a lot of my successes to the steps that I take, that maybe not looking at how much you're making, but more how good of a product you can come up with. That's what I attribute a lot of my successes to. And I don't want to ramble on too long, so but yeah, hopefully that helps a lot of people.
So you found us, I think you found us in 2020, maybe late 2020, and you
I think it was
started
late 2019.
Oh, 2019. Okay.
Yeah.
But definitely 2020
No.
is when I think you blasted for the first time with EpiX, and
No.
you were looking for something safer. So I love it, because I think we actually connected I wasn't CMO back then, but I think
Yeah.
we ended up connecting first, and I was like, well, just get a bag and try it. I mean, if we didn't make it
So
big
yeah,
complicated.
this is how this happened. I was just doing custom work, and it has ups and downs. So coming from running a tier one company, I wanted to figure out, okay, what can we do to fill those gaps and what would be more consistent. And I did find a customer, and they wanted to move forward, but they wanted to do all the testing from salt spray, on the actual coating, not adhesion, but they also wanted to do mandrel testing, and they also did a couple of other ASTM tests. And unfortunately, we failed using another media. I'm not going to say what media it was. And that's what led me to go in my group and search what everybody else is using. Now, back then, I didn't know anything about 10x. It came up on the post, and I was like, all right, I'm going to give this a try. So we did, passed everything with flying colors. And that was my first large industrial customer. Um, and that led me to bring on an employee, my first employee. And he's still with us today. He's an awesome guy. Hunter, shout out. um, so fast forward, this process still is repeating and repeating, and we're growing. We're getting more industrial customers, and all of them, they require a good profile. I mean, they want their product to last, and they're a lot more stringent than some guys that are just custom work. They're a lot more stringent than them. But this also led me into another thing. When you start becoming, connected with your employees and you care about them, you want what's best for them. You want what's safe. And that's actually what made me lead into looking to see what 10x is even made of. Because at that point in time, honestly, I had no idea. Didn't have a clue. I just knew that we had an initiative to look into the safety factors of all the stuff we're using, as well as environmental impact. We're looking at getting different certifications, which you have to make sure you're environmentally friendly. And so I didn't have to change anything. You guys already are like the safest possible thing to use. And Jake, you mentioned the coffee thing, and I just think that's hilarious because it is. I mean, it's that safe to be around. And so, we changed some other stuff in our process, but 10x has just always filled all of the check boxes. I think a lot of guys will realize as you grow, and especially if you want to get into that industrial side, these suppliers or these customers that you'll have, they require you to be environmentally friendly. They want you to, it's easier to get them on board with you processing their product if you follow that stuff. If you're able to say, look, from the chemistry to the media to your powder coat, everything falls in line to this green standard. They're like, all right, let's do it. Let's go for it. And I'm finding over and over again that just works. And of course, quality of your product is most important, but 10x helps with that too. So everything just has worked really well using 10x for me, and that's why I'm here.
Just want to make sure we hit all the points that we got on your slide here, Jake.
Sure.
So 21. Yeah. So you've grown. You want to talk a little bit about
Yeah,
we're
we
both
went
so
from
old these days.
barely making ends meet to now I can actually focus on helping people and not really worrying about money. That group, I think in the powder coating group on Facebook, which is just a massive group. A lot of the times I get asked, why are you helping other people do what you're doing? And when money no longer is a factor, and realizing that you just want to help people and help people grow and help them put food on their table for their families and all that, um, it makes everything so much more enjoyable. And 10x definitely did attribute to a lot of that. I went from barely making ends meet to now having multiple tier one supplying customers. I mean, it's huge. And we did all of this. Years back, I was in like a little shed using an Eastwood gun. Now I have 6 powder coating systems. We've got 7 employees. I mean, it's been amazing. It's been an amazing trip. So, and I feel very blessed to be doing this. And, now we also do the powder coating tools that assist in, helping people do two-tone work that, put more money on their table at home. So, but yeah,
So
that's my story.
so when you got into 10x and you started
Mhm.
getting these test results, and now you can actually go out and win the customers that you wanted, maybe a bit more
Yep.
predictable. I don't know if you do contracts, but it's a different
Mhm.
type of a customer, right? You're having to meet an
Significantly.
engineering spec and prove
Yeah.
you have a consistent process.
You
Um,
have to do all the depending on what they are, if they're 16949, or I mean, it just depends on the customer. Like honestly, there's some customers that I would have expected a lot of stringent requirements, and then there's that have none, and then there's other ones that are like they want to know 3-point checks on mill thickness with eddy current to figure out, are we consistent across the board with the film thickness?
mhm.
And then they'll do, each batch of parts that they get, they'll do either cyclical salt spray testing or standard, and all the way down from the angle that the part is held in the chamber. I mean, there is a lot behind the scenes that a lot of people may not understand. Um, but that's also why it's important to set your business up for success, to get things in place right from the beginning, if you're wanting to make a lot of money and then be able to give back, uh, from the type of media you're using, from your business plan, maybe from even the type of customers you want to target. You already know this, but based off location, some guys can't thrive off of just doing custom stuff. They have to have some other type of uh, throughput, or some other type of income. And the industrial side is really the only way to go, but you can't even get into the industrial side unless you have processes in place like a control plan, a FEMA, a process flow. And then even then they'll want to know what you're using to basically make their product or put a coating on their product. Um, so it is very, very critical to make sure you're using stuff that makes sense. And, I don't chuckle, but I just think that a lot of guys that say, "Oh, well, that stuff's so expensive," or whatever, they really don't have an understanding of the industry and why some things might cost more, because it allows a end result to, especially mass production, that's just to a higher standard and puts that company ahead. Um, but yeah, I could literally talk all day. So, but
So,
it definitely
so
has helped
I'll
me.
remind you.
Mhm.
One of the things that we talked about, you have these pro tips on pricing
Yeah.
to transition to the growth you've had and accomplish everything. You obviously you needed a product. We gave you,
Mhm.
or you get that product from us, but you needed your whole process to be really set and
Yeah.
repeatable, and it's predictable, where you're delivering this quality regularly.
Yep.
But it's not just that, it's also focusing on that finished quality and then pricing based on quality. So can you
Yep.
kind of explain your two pro tips here at the bottom of the slides before we
Sure. I
get into
mean, so
Q&A?
the pricing things, pricing stuff's always, I mean, obviously it can be locational based. Like there may not be a market for what some people are doing in certain areas, but you also don't want to do, and I know everybody's heard this, race to the bottom. You do not want to get into that battle where it becomes no longer enjoyable for you to even run your business. If you're racing to the bottom, it's like, oh, I don't have an analogy for you, but you don't want to try and price things off of, oh, how cheap can I do this? You want to price it off of, okay, is my quality going to be better and last and cause them to want to come back? You know, that's the basic main tip that I want to throw out there. Is you just don't want to try and price as cheap as possible,
Yep.
because it doesn't work for anybody. No business, unless you're working to try and shut down your business fast.
Um, so, right, price for quality, but then
Mhm.
build your business, like invest in what's necessary to get that quality. So you need the
Yeah,
right
even
equipment,
down to
materials, all of that.
um, well, it's not even just that. Doing your research. So, sure, buying the right equipment, buying the right tools, all that, but doing your research on what you're using is super critical. From, like, for example, when I first started using MP, so 10x MP, we were running at like almost 200 psi in our siphon cabinet, and it way too high. And then we ended up finding out, after doing a little research on your website and dialing it back, not only does it blast way smoother, the actual finish on it is absolutely perfect, and it removes quicker and cleans faster, because a lot of stuff that we actually run through, if we're already acid stripping it prior, it cleans it amazingly, which actually one of those wheels in that last slide was chemically stripped, and then we do the low pressure blast on it, and it just cleans it up so good to where the finish looks amazing.
And now we're going to get into the question and answer. So we do have a couple of questions. Let me grab Steve. The first question is actually for you. There was a question tagged, and the gentleman, Don, asked, do you have data on longevity compared to steel grit? Do you mind talking a little bit about that?
Yes, we don't have any of our own data on that. All I can do is share our customer experience. And as everyone knows, long-term data is kind of hard to collect. So a lot of the problems occur years down the road if they occur. But we do know what happens initially, right at surface preparation, right after coating, and we covered that with the defects that occur. We have customers that are not in the powder coating industry, but are more in shipbuilding, manufacturing, maintenance, who do know what happens with surfaces that have been coated after preparing them with 10x. The boats come back. They've blasted a few years ago. The boats have come back, and they're in much better shape than they were, than they typically see. And they know that they had prepared that vessel with 10x beforehand. So I don't have anything specific to tell you about steel grit, other than we are very aware that it often over profiles surfaces, especially if you're going to put a thin coating on it. And that leads to defects in that coating, and those coatings will very likely not last as long.
And then a question for you, Steve, and then I've got a couple here for you, Jacob. So Steve, someone asked if there's any insight on how the media behaves in the treatment of stone surfaces, stone, marble.
Yeah, we have had I call it mixed feedback. If you're doing very hard stone, we have found that it does. There's not an advantage like what we've discussed in this webinar. But if it's a softer stone, what we know is that the customers love it because it has sharper edges. I guess on the harder stones, it's not there isn't an advantage in I guess productivity, speed, but there is on the softer stones.
Okay. Jacob, this one's for you. This one was actually emailed in. Krista asks, once you dialed in the 10x and got your process changed, I think she means once you adopted it and were used to it, she wants to know how you changed your quoting. And she specifically asked, did you simply raise prices by a fixed %? Did you win more jobs at the same rate, or did you do something else? And how did you figure that out?
So marginally, we upped like 3%. That's just baseline cost. But then over time, as more and more stuff came in because of the quality of the product. So, I've had multiple times, and this is like custom side. they'll come back and say, oh, I got this done a year ago and it still looks brand new. The more and more we get customers like that, the more and more we're able to increase the price, and not have to worry about market value or what other people in this area are charging, because they know it's going to last, and they would rather pay more to have something they know isn't going to fail on them after the first year. So I actually even warranty all of our stuff for 2 years now. Never used to do that.
Okay. Thank you. And whoever you are, Krista, that's a good question. We have one more for you right now, Jacob.
Okay.
After you dialed in and they wrote profile and DFT, so I don't know exactly. We'll just call it after you dialed in. Oh, sorry. This is a very similar question to what you just answered. We'll go to the next one.
Okay. No worries.
Yeah, and it's okay.
Good.
A
At least
lot
we
of times
answered it
we
for
get the
both.
same question over and
Yeah.
over. What was the single most important change you actually noticed after you switched to the 10X grit, and which one do you like and why?
So to answer this, I'm going to answer two different ways, because I always look at my custom side different from the industrial side, because the industrial side, they actually do testing. Mandrel testing is what we noticed a difference in. So we were able to pass with flying colors on, I believe it's D522. It's a mandrel test that they rolled apart. So basically, so some of you that may not know, they roll it over and there's markings that show basically adhesion across. And we were failing right at that end point, and we no longer fail. Like every single time we've passed flying colors. And then for the custom side, what I've noticed there was a big improvement would be probably on the edges of surface. A lot of people have like it's called like an edging or a picture framing. Some people call it that. That defect is pretty much gone. And honestly, I can't explain it other than we switched media. I don't know if it's just allowing the edge around that to just be the right profile to not allow the powder to kind of to move away from that sharp edge. But yeah, hopefully that answers those.
Okay. And Steve, this one is for you. And this one, I guess, think about it for a second. I wouldn't say, oh, do it this way. I would. The question is very assumptive. We'll just say that. So this guy's asking if a shop that I run did a 2 to 4 hour trial with 10X, what should we measure and why to quantify the difference? And again, I'd say think about that. And it may not be, in my opinion, before you even jump in, Steve, my opinion would be this like intense time trial. It's very hard. This stuff is not expensive, right? This is you can buy what you need and like work for a month. And even if you don't believe anything we say today, it's not going to put you in the poorhouse. So my opinion is just do it, right? Just go and figure it out along the way. It's a heck of a lot easier than trying to get this like high pressure, figuring everything out in 2 or 4 hours. But this is what somebody's asking, and we're going to try to answer all questions live because it looks like we'll have the time to. So Steve, take it away. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. This is an issue we deal with all the time, especially when you're new in the market. And we're less new than we were a few years ago, but we're still new. There's a lot of skepticism, and it's understandable. It's understandable. And so people tend to gravitate towards these, smaller tests. They'll do a head-to-head with another abrasive. And the reality is that small trial can mislead you, because to get everything, dialed in, to see the benefits that are less easily measured in a small trial over time. If you just do the small trial, you won't see those things. So I agree with Jake. However, if I were going to, the way we suggest doing these small tests is to you want to measure from a blasting economic standpoint, that the three things that matter are abrasive feed rate in, say, pounds per minute, the abrasive speed, and the amount of productive work, usually in square feet. If it's on the side of a ship, it might be per part if you're blasting parts in a cabinet. But some measure of progress over a period of time. That's speed. But that also ultimately leads to is you get a speed and you get a consumption. How much abrasive per unit of productive output, whatever that is. And if you have those two things, you can work up economics. To get consumption, which is a hard thing to get, there's two ways to do it. One is to blast for each abrasive for a specific amount of time if you're comparing abrasives, and measure how much you got done. And then you will have to know the weight of the material you put into your pot or cabinet, then take it out. If it's tough in a cabinet, let's talk about a pot. You need a weight before and after. The way I like to do it is to put a known amount of abrasive in the pot and blast until it's empty, time it, and see how much productive work you got done. That's my favorite way of doing it. It's bulletproof, and you get all those parameters that I just talked about.
Thank you. We have a couple more questions here. One of them, I'll answer the one that was typed in. I don't know who asked what first, so I apologize if this is out of order. But anyways, any specific equipment recommendations for someone looking to begin surface treatment or pitfalls to avoid? And this particular person said they typically are processing less than 5 Mohs hardness stone, 3 cubic feet. My suggestion would be on something that specific, just call the 10X factory and book yourself a 15-30 minute session with one of our engineers. Phone calls free to you, and they can give you some advice, put you in the right direction in terms of if you're trying to spec new equipment, whatever. Because everybody has different needs and different size compressors. So the specific question, or the best answer to that question, is probably a one-on-one conversation. It's like exactly what it is, and we'd probably have some questions for you before we made the right recommendation. Steve, do you have anything to add to that?
No, only to say that we live for this stuff. We love those 30-minute phone calls, and we're happy to help.
Okay, we have 3 more. This one is a recommendation on abrasive line to cover many different types of jobs, such as trailers, fuel barrels, random parts, or should we be using multiple lines from you? They're using a portable large blasting machine.
EP.
So I will, one thing I will say is on equipment, if you're using a portable machine, just make sure your equipment's in good working order and you have the style of metering valve we recommend. Jacob's actually in the process of upgrading his equipment. He talked to our factory before he made a choice. Valve, think of the valve as your money valve. If you have an imprecise one, you're spending money that serves no purpose in terms of wasted abrasive, and you also might be going slower. If you can't dial it in as efficient as we can get with our product, you won't be able to go as fast, and your quality probably won't be as good either, especially if you're throwing too much grit.
It's funny, Jake, after, not to cut you off, but after I had purchased that, after talking with your team, I posted a picture of I went with the Schmidt pot with the metering valve on it. 12 volt, I believe is what it is, metering valve. Anyways, didn't know a whole lot about that specific model, as I've always used Clemco. And I posted that, and there's people in there talking already about how having that type of valve has increased efficiency and reduced the amount of media that they use, which is, I mean, that's awesome. I'm excited to get it up and running because I just know it's going to work great.
Yeah, and for this question, it looks like somebody by the name of Dan asked it. Steve, to me, it depends on what the breadth is of like how much profile the guy needs. Like EpiX EP might be the right answer. Maybe Kinetics 2070. There's a few different products in our line. It depends on what the range of profile is you need, right?
That's exactly right. I would say if, and when this is on our website, the profile ranges that each grade will get. It's really the choice is driven by two things. What is the variety of corrosion coatings that have to be removed, and what profile is required. If you have different jobs with vastly different profiles, you're going to need different grades. But if you need that, 2.5 to 3.5 mil profile, we designed our Kinetics 2070 to be the all-purpose abrasive that this gentleman is talking about. But just need to know that the profile is going to be around 3, which is normally a great profile. The vast majority of the market wants a 3 mil profile, especially for wet coatings.
But for powder coating, like if that's all they did, my advice would be, my advice would be.
That's what I was going to ask, is what finish.
Yeah.
What finish are they using on that? Because that does make a difference too.
I mean, Jacob, you know more about powder coating than all of us combined. But in my experience, you want to be in that, maximum 2.5 mil profile. That's actually too deep. You want to 1 to 2.25 maybe.
Yep. 1, right around that range. But again, so if it is getting powder coated, honestly, even like a thick epoxy paint too, that the EP in a it sounds like it's going to be put through like a pressure pot, I think would be a great. I don't think they would be mad. I think they'd be very happy with that profile.
Yeah, we do have a lot of people that use MP in their cabinet for smaller parts, and then when they get into the bigger blasting equipment in a room, maybe it's outside, whatever, for there they go with EP because they can mess around with the pressure and get almost as low of a profile as MP with EP at low pressure. But when they, like one guy was talking about mil scale in the direct message to me on this webcast, and I told him, yeah, absolutely, you can take mil scale off with 10x. But if you're doing mil scale, then I'd say, well, put your pressure up higher, because you're not as concerned on mil scale removal, for example. You just want to go as fast as you can, and blasting that at 60 psi is going to be a lot slower than say 110. And EP can give you that range. Anyway, so Jake, we got another question for you, which is about. Let me make sure I read this right. Okay, so this is actually talking about clear coat. This person says they use coal slag in their big blaster, and I think this is 60 or 64 grit A-locks in their cabinet, and they have customers asking for clear coat, and they struggle. They're struggling. This guy says he's basically struggling with clear coat, and he wants to know if you offer clear coat and what you recommend for a surface prep before you get into clear coat.
I kind of would need, like, what does it say? What defect he's experiencing? Because I mean, honestly, that combo.
He didn't say the defect. He just said he's struggling to get that satin look. So it's like a cosmetic issue. It doesn't sound like it's a coating failure necessarily.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely want to know more. I'd even want to know if it's an aluminum part or not. But as far as like clear coat recommendations, I mean, there's a lot of good stuff that, like, Columbia Coatings has different, clear options and things like that. But as far as the profile, if it's aluminum, I would use an MP. And then for steel hardened stuff, I always use EP. So, and that's always given us a very, very nice, consistent finish. But on clear coat, if you already have your, base laid out, maybe check your mill thickness on each layer and make sure that it's adequate to, recommendations are usually around 3 mils per layer. So if you don't have one, get yourself like an eddy current system to check thickness, or I mean, you can even get on Amazon. They have different mill thickness readers and stuff like that, to make sure that you're charging your powder correct and making sure you're not, overcharging or undercharging, or especially with clear coat. Too much clear can cause a lot of issues, and too little clear can cause a lot of issues. So
I just one comment on that.
Mhm.
It sounds like it's an aesthetic problem
Yeah.
with clear coat, and I mean, if I were advising just based on the information given, I would say EpiX MP.
Yep.
Because it produces that. Sometimes I mean, all of our grades produce a really beautiful finish. It doesn't have blemishes. It doesn't have uneven areas. It doesn't, it does all those things. But because MP is finer than the other grades, it's that effect is enhanced, and it looks beautiful under clear coat. And Jacob, it sounds like you agree with that.
Yeah, so we actually have a customer that we do a good volume of parts with that we just do MP, and we actually put wheel clear on top of it from Columbia, and they just love the way that looks. That was actually not intentional. They wanted to do a test on the clear coat, and I was like, okay, we'll do on the base. They said just do the clear so we can just test that. And then once they got the part, they're like, well, what are you using on the base on this? Because this looks great. This is exactly what we want. And I was like, it's just sandblast. I mean, it's just the 10x MP. And so that's what we do with their parts now. Funny enough, they didn't ask me to change, and they're well aware it's just sandblast. They didn't want any change on the pricing since we're not doing that base coat. They're like, nope, we're good with it. Like, okay.
That's great.
Yeah.
We got a few more questions in here. One of them is going to be the fastest answer, so I'm going to actually jump to that first. So I'm going a little out of order. Forgive me. Ron was asking what Facebook group you were talking about, Jacob. Can you just explain quickly the best way for them to find it?
Yeah, so it is a private group. So it is by like you can go in and request to join. It's just called Powder Coating Group. And it's got like 50,000 people in it. But we just go through and make sure that you're an actual coder, or somebody that's really interested in that field. And then you'll get approved. We have a couple of people that, not just myself, but there's a couple of people that monitor that and go through. But typically we receive over 100 requests a day, so it can take a second to get in. But it's called Powder Coating Group
On Facebook. Yep.
Yep, on Facebook. Yes.
Thank you. So we answered that. Steve, this is a quick question for you. They're asking, do you ever host tours or trainings in Wabash, where our factory is? And this person, I think, also looked at the service packages we have for sale online. So maybe if we could just kind of touch upon that a little bit.
Sure. We're in a manufacturer, but we have done trainings, and we are happy to do those things. As far as tours go, if you're in the area and you want to give us a call and come by, we're happy to walk you through and show you. But we have not done a training at our facility. We normally go to the customer's facility and conduct it there, and that can include whatever you would like. We could do a classroom portion of it, where we go over some of the important things as they relate to what you're trying to accomplish. It's not a canned thing. We customize what we do to the needs of each different customer and their business. And then we'll do field time, where we can do sort of supervised blasting and help the blasters become much more efficient. We did another webinar, I think it was earlier this year. It was on profitability in blasting. I would recommend you watch that. We went through all the things specifically related to blasting. We didn't talk about coding at all. And one of the things we highlight in that webinar is the things you can do with equipment settings and all of that to improve the productivity and ultimately, increase your margin essentially. Just knowing how to work all the different components of a blasting system. And then we talk about training. And I can tell you that in our experience, training on its own can accomplish more gains than everything else we might talk about combined. It's that important. The operator controls so much of the productivity, the cost. And if they're well trained, we have one customer that has the best blasters I've ever seen to this day. And they can do an entire rail car in like 2 hours. And it's because their blasters are just phenomenal. So, but anyway, the upshot is we're happy to help with training.
We have a safety question and then one more question. I'll go to the safety question first. This is kind of a long question, so I'm condensing and paraphrasing here, but the essence of it is this particular shop has to certify. They use garnet now. Apparently they have an issue because they have a customer that says that they have to certify that there are no materials that contain crystalline free silica on their site. If we switch to 10X, they're implying they have to switch to something because whatever they use now doesn't check this box. If we switch to 10X, what documentation can you provide that the material is safe, and also they'll be compliant with their customer's requirement to have no free crystalline silica on site? So sorry for the wordiness there, but that was a kind of a longer one, so I figured we'd go to this one first and then we can wrap it up.
You want me to answer this?
Yeah, please.
Okay. So the three regulated forms of crystalline silica are quartz, which is the most common, cristobalite, and tridymite. And they persist in the lungs. They stay in the lungs. That's the big problem. When particles stay in your lungs and your body is unable to remove them, it sets up inflammation processes, eventually scarring, because your body traps that particle to protect you, try to keep you alive. And eventually that can lead to inelasticity in the lungs, difficulty breathing, and then ultimately cancer. It could, doesn't always, but it could become cancer. Only the crystalline forms of silicon dioxide do that. In our material, we've tested it 100 times or more, and we will send you whatever you want. We have documentation about, we've never had crystalline silica detected in our material, and the reason is it's impossible for there to be a crystal. When they make mineral wool, they start with molten minerals with a liquid, orange, hot, out of a furnace. And then the fibers and these, what was formerly a waste for these, it also makes particles and fibers in the same chamber. We're now using the particles. But that cooling process, that solidification process happens so fast that it's not possible for the atoms to arrange in any particular order. It can't form a crystal. There is no crystalline anything in our material. And we have testing to prove it.
Thank you. And Jacob, we have a question specifically about somebody using coal slag. Mm-hmm. They say they have orange peel and fish eyes no matter how they adjust their grit. Do you think 10X will fix that, or should I fix something else first? So this is specifically about orange peel and fish eyes, which we had pictures of, at least some of them.
Those, Jake, so those two defects would tell me, one, they have their pressure up pretty high, and two, coal slag. I mean, that's known for embedding. That's known for getting inside the material. And that's kind of the problem with coal slag is for it to work good, you have to really up the pressure. And then to up the pressure, you're now embedding it into the material, which then, from a microscopic standpoint, you might not actually see it until you coat the part, and then you have fish eyes come through. So as it's baking, it does not like that coal, and it wants to separate because it's like a contaminant. So it separates from that in your finish. So that right there is what's causing it. Switching to 10X should definitely resolve that. But furthermore, also make sure you do your research on whether you're blasting aluminum or steel, what pressures you should be running it at, because I think that would also help significantly.
All right. Well, I don't see any more questions. We got all of them. We went a little over. Thanks everybody for their patience. And Steve, Jacob, really appreciate you guys taking the afternoon to talk with everybody about 10X and blasting and coating.
Yep. Thanks everybody for attending.
Yep. Thanks, guys.
Have a good afternoon. Bye-bye.